Change isn't just coming, it's already here. This is Ask for Change podcast, hosted by leadership expert Meridith Powell, brings you weekly conversations with leaders and experts who are redefining success in a world of disruption. Let's begin today's journey and turn uncertainty into your competitive advantage.
Let's turn uncertainty into your competitive advantage. I am Meridith Powell, and welcome to Ask for Change. I got a great show for you today because I am sitting down with the Marilyn Sherman. She is a Hall of Fame keynote speaker, author of Front Row Success, and she has spent more than 25 years teaching leaders at companies like Coca-Cola, Starbucks, and NASA, just to name a few, how to move their people from watching the game to actually getting in the front row and playing it. Her whole philosophy is built around one idea: life is a venue, and too many of us are sitting in the balcony when we should be in the front row. Welcome to the show, Marilyn.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to see you.
I am too. I mean, this is going to be such a great conversation. Now, before we go any further, you have been talking about getting in the front row for years and years. What exactly does that mean? Where did you come up with the concept, and why should people be getting in the front row?
Well, it actually happened when I was at a concert where my girlfriends and I bought our tickets the same day of the concert, and we were so far in the balcony. And as soon as we took our seats, I could barely see the stage. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is what my life has come to. I was in like this horrible relationship. I was jealous of everybody else having more success than me. I was walking around with 60 extra pounds and I was a motivational speaker. So clearly I was motivating other people, but I couldn't motivate myself. So in that moment, I realized I had been living in this sort of dichotomy of saying one thing to my audiences, but not practicing what I preached at home. And it really hit me that night at the concert. And I decided, enough is enough. And I just got up and I took a walk. I didn't know where I was going. I had no plan. I just knew that I couldn't stay where I was. And as I walked through that venue, I literally walked my way all the way to the front row next to the stage. And I thought, wow, the view from down here is so much better. And then I did what most people don't do. I got out of my comfort zone when I saw a guy standing next to the stage, and I just simply engaged him in conversation. I said, excuse me, what time does this concert start? I thought it was supposed to start at 10. He said, well, it's supposed to start at 10, but my Uncle Phil isn't scheduled to be out on stage until 10:15. And I said, Uncle Phil, like Philip Bailey of Earth, Wind and Fire, that's your uncle? He's like, yeah. Why? Are you in the business? I said, no, I'm a motivational speaker. And he's like, oh man, can you motivate me? It's like, yes, I can. So I had this great conversation with a complete stranger. And within moments, we both had something of value because after I was done sort of giving him my keynote, he's like, wow, I got to go take my seat. And I'm like, well, where are you sitting? He said, well, down in front, where are you sitting? And I said, my two girlfriends and I are up in the balcony nosebleed section. He goes, well, wait right here. And he runs backstage and he comes back with 3 all access badges. And he invited me to go get my girlfriends and come sit in the front row and then meet him after the show to be introduced to his uncle and the rest of the band. And so that's what really created my front row philosophy, is that most people take their seat and they don't like their view. They don't like who they're sitting with. They don't like what's going on, but they don't do anything about it. They stay seated. And then if they're really disconnected and negative in their mindset, they look at the people down in front and they make stuff up as to how they got there.
Yeah.
Right? It's like those opportunities never happened for someone like me. They must have gotten lucky. They must have known someone. They must be related to someone. So I say, if you don't like your seat, stop complaining about it. You have 2 choices. Either one, get up and get to a new seat, or shift your perspective about the seat that you're in and find some value in being there.
Do you kind of need to do both? Because I imagine that, we get put in seats at times that we
Yes.
don't want to sit
Yes.
in, and seats you
Yeah.
can't get out of, right?
Yes.
I mean, I think about the fact that, not long ago you lost your husband after a long illness, and that's certainly not a seat that you want to be in. And so you've
Right.
got to be sitting in that seat and go through it as you go through it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, looking to move your seat. I guess what I'm looking for is how do we take the steps to simultaneously be grateful for where we are, or shift the perspective, or embrace it? And then at the same time, I think about the seat that I was stuck in my life where I didn't want to be. I couldn't shift it right away, but I knew when I crossed my 40th birthday, I didn't want to be in that seat any longer.
Right.
And so I felt like I had two going on. So for
Right.
those kind of balancing that, where do we go with it?
Well, first off, it all starts with deciding what is your front row. What does that look like? Because once you've decided what your front row looks like for you, and it's different for everyone, then you can start to do some reflecting. Like, well, where am I sitting right now in this venue of life? And if I were to do something about it, what would that look like? If I could do something about it, what would that look like? If I can't do something right now, then what can I do to shift my perspective, to recognize, okay, I'm sitting here for a reason. Let me find out what that reason is. And you are absolutely right. Sometimes we're not only given a chair that we didn't anticipate, but we're given people to sit in our front row with us that we didn't choose. So we have to really have a mindset of abundant thinking. Like, okay, there's a reason why this person is in my life. There's a reason why this person is on my team. There's a reason why I'm managing this project. There's a reason. Let me find out what that reason is. Let me lean into it instead of being disengaged, because that's what happens during times of uncertainty, as you well know. People get disengaged. They get distracted. They sometimes get delusional. And so it's times like this that we really need to lean in, and we need to reflect on what's working. What can I do differently? What can I learn from this? What can I contribute? And when you start to have that kind of perspective shift, that's when things start to happen.
So, so what about, I mean, when we think about corporate America, I mean, and I'm sitting there as a leader, and you're going to come in and work with my organization and help me, define this idea of a front row success. Do I want everybody sitting in the front row? Like, what is it? I have two questions. I want to back up before I ask that one. I want to know, why do we choose to stay in the balcony? I mean, is there some kind of like psychological thing about that because I do feel like most people take what they are given in life and are unhappy with it,
Right.
but we're more comfortable staying with it. And as you said, we make up reasons then that we can't be in the front row.
Right.
So let's start with that.
Well, I think people just get really comfortable in their discomfort.
Yeah.
This is the way I've always been. This is the way I'll always be. This is my lot in life. This is my ticket. And so they accept it without challenging it. And when they accept it, then there's no growth. There's no stimulation for becoming better. So we have to get out of our comfort zone. We have to get out of, when you're in the balcony, you're safe because no one's going to call on you. No one's going to call you out. No one's going to question you. But you're blending in to the background. In fact, you're blending in with other people who are just as disengaged as you are. So this is not a good place to be, but it's comfortable.
Yeah.
And people like to be comfortable. They like to be safe and comfortable. But the longer you stay in the balcony, the worse it gets because your competition just goes right by you.
What I love about your opening story is the fact that, I mean, you really had to push out of your comfort zone, right? I mean, it would have been so much easier to sit there with your girlfriends and complain about these nosebleed, but you had seconds of uncomfortable. I mean, seconds, because the moment that you opened your mouth and started talking and he spoke back, I imagine that got pretty comfortable. Is that right?
Oh, it was awesome because
Yeah.
it was like, you know how sometimes you just see people in a crowd and you don't do anything, or you recognize someone and you don't say anything, and then you live with the regret, like I really wish I would have said something. So when I saw this guy, I'm like, I'm going for it. I'm just going to engage him in a conversation. And it just so happened to be someone who had something of value for me, and I had something of value for him. So
Yeah.
think of all the lost opportunities out there because we simply don't engage with other people because we make up a story. For example, I'll give you a very clear example. I was at a business conference for speakers in Toronto, Canada. And I was sitting in the front row, totally engaged, loving every minute of it. And then the next day, I noticed everybody had moved around, but I had reserved my seat to make sure I had a front row seat. And there was a different guy sitting next to my stuff. And he was older by 20 years than everybody else in the room. And I thought, my immediate reaction was, oh man, I don't want to sit next to him. He probably had a whole career in one profession and decided he wanted to be a professional speaker. I'd rather sit with the cool kids who are already further along their business career of speaking than I am. And then I thought, Marilyn, let go of that judgment. That doesn't serve you. So go be of service to the guy. So I sat next to him. And he said, yeah, I'm new to the speaking industry. I've spent my entire career in the medical profession. And I thought, nailed it. And so then my ego went the other direction. My ego went, well, listen, I've been around a long time. If you need anything at all, you just give me a call. And he's like, wow, thank you. Well, then at the end of the day, before we left, he got up and he gave a 15-minute showcase presentation of his speech. And my jaw hit the floor because not only was he the most fascinating person in that entire room, he's probably in the top 5 most fascinating people I've ever met in my life. And he was in the medical profession. So his story, his signature story, was when he was a young intern working in an emergency room in a hospital, feeling sorry for himself because all of his friends were out enjoying the parade in the community. And he had to work that day and he was feeling kind of down. But in the middle of his shift, the emergency doors burst open and he had to work on a patient. And that patient was John F. Kennedy.
Oh my God.
I know. He had the most fascinating story of being on the team that tried to save President Kennedy's life after he was assassinated. So he had a whole story around that. And I could have listened to him for hours. And I blew it because I sat next to him an entire day and I didn't ask him a single question about him.
Yeah.
And so when I think of people who get real comfortable in the balcony, or even general admission, which is your comfort zone, it's not bad, but it's not great. We really need to stretch ourselves, take a risk, and focus on being more interested than being interesting.
So true.
And then all of a sudden, doors open for you, relationships open, connections open, referrals open. I mean, things start to open up for you, but you have to take a risk to get out of your comfort zone for sure.
Yeah, I love this idea that, because I think I think the one thing you take from this podcast is so important is that we make up stories about people more successful than we are all the time. We all do it. And the truth is, everybody's got their balcony seat, right? I mean, I don't care if you were born into money and privilege and connections, there was some other balcony seat that you got. And some people move out of that and some people don't. And luckily for all of you, Marilyn's written the formula of how the heck you basically get out of that seat. But we've got a question here from the audience. How do you know when it's time to stop just adapting and really start asking for something else? Like, I think I love that question too. Like, what do you have to hit the bottom like you hit the bottom? How do you know?
No. It goes back to defining what you want. What does your front row look like for you? And then where are you sitting today? And then look at the gap. What's the difference between where you are right now with the ultimate seat? I mean, and that's the one thing that I ask of my readers and my listeners all the time is is what would be the ultimate front row seat? And you get to define it. No rules.
Yeah.
There's no boundaries. You get to define it for you. And then once you define what your front row looks like for you, and by the way, we have lots of different seats that we could be in. So we have our work seat, our relationship seat, our confidence seat, our attitude seat, our relationship seat, our faith seat. You know, we have all these different seats. So with each one of these different seats that we're sitting in, ask yourself, what would the ideal seat look like for me? What would be the ultimate front row seat for me look like? And then where am I sitting now? Am I in the balcony or meandering around in general admission, or am I in the front row? And then for all the seats that you have indicated general admission or the balcony, then ask yourself, okay, what if a year went by and I never moved my seat?
Yeah.
How would that feel? What if 3 years went by and I'm still sitting in this same seat? How would that feel? And when you realize how awful it would be to be stagnant and not to grow, then you make a decision. Okay, then from this day forward, I'm going to take steps to move myself closer to the front row of my life.
So I want to go back to this question of, you know, as a leader, do we want everybody in the front row that works for us?
Well, that's the interesting thing, because I did a series of keynotes for a company across the country, and that question was brought up. They're like, well, I don't want everybody sitting in the front row. And I'm like, okay, I'm misconstruing the message. Living in the front row is living your best self.
Yeah.
It's where you get to say, I am bringing my best self to work. Because if you're not bringing your best self to your role, you are being disengaged. You're not adding value. You are maybe even being disruptive. So you would absolutely want everybody to bring their A game to work. You don't want I mean, imagine if you had your entire team living in general admission. If everybody was comfortable all the time, what would that team end up producing?
Yeah. Well, I think it's, you know, I think that's what we've got today, right? I mean, isn't upwards of 70% of employees completely disengaged today? And your definition of disengaged would be that your employees are sitting in a balcony when you need them more than ever, which leads to a really great question that that Kelly's got. I'm going to put up here in a moment. But I love what Mark said, because I think this is such good perspective. We complain about our balcony seat, but he said, or think about the people who couldn't even attend that concert you went to and would have been pleased to be in your balcony seat, the one that we might be complaining about. Talk about shifting perspective, right?
Yes, Mark has got a great point, because no matter what you and I complain about, no matter what it is, whatever we complain about, there is somebody in the world that would give their right arm to switch places with us. And that's what I mean about shifting your perspective is to realize we've got it pretty good. We've got it really good. And if you stop complaining and recognize that it could be a lot worse, then you start to embrace it and maybe do something good with it.
Yeah. Which I think leads so well into this question that Kelly's got. She said, what do you think leaders unintentionally do that makes uncertainty feel more threatening than it actually is? Or let me put this into lingo. What do leaders unintentionally do that are keeping us in our balcony seats?
I think sometimes I come from a place of leadership is about collaboration and buy-in. And let's bring everybody together. And I think sometimes when you're not listening to your team, when you are just dictating to your team, I think that's when people get disengaged. When they don't feel like their voice matters, when they don't feel like their voice is valued, I think they're like, well, then why bother? So as leaders, that's, I think, the best way to get your people to be more engaged is to engage them in the conversation, engage them earlier in the conversation. I know decisions cannot always be made by committee. Like you can't, that's not reality, but at least you can bring them in on the conversation earlier. I remember I worked for a finance company back in the day where there was a big merger taking place, and senior management didn't tell us anything. And so there was lots and lots of rumors going around as to what was happening. And looking back, they realized what they could have done is they could have let us know earlier that yes, there is something taking place, but there are definite laws in place that we cannot speak about it. We will speak about it, but yeah, hold tight. We're here for you. If you have any questions, come talk to us individually. They could have brought us into the conversation earlier, because in the absence of information, people just make stuff up. And then productivity goes down because everybody's talking about, well, what do you think's going on? And what do you think's going on? And conjecture happens, and that doesn't serve anyone.
Yeah. It's hard to believe, but we're coming close to the end of this podcast. This has been such a great conversation. Tell us a little bit about the new book, what inspired it, what you gained from the book, how we all can get a copy of it.
I'm so excited. It's like, it's called Front Row Success. How to live and lead from the best seat in the house. And this is all about all the different seats that you could be sitting in your life right now. But the ultimate seat, and I love this. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. The ultimate seat is to be an usher for other people, because I live in Las Vegas. We go to shows all the time in Las Vegas. And no matter what venue you go to, there is an usher with two things. They have knowledge of all the seats in the house, and they have a flashlight. And they look at your ticket, and then they illuminate the path through the darkness with their flashlight so you can get to your seat. That's what leadership is. You are illuminating the path for other people. So when you are living your best front row life, you're bringing your best to work every day. People are watching. People can see you. People are inspired by you. And as a result, they can see what's possible for them. So it's an inspiring book about personal development and professional development. So that's why it's how to live and lead from the best seat in the house. My website is frontrowsuccess.com. And you can go there, or you can go to Amazon and get hardcover, softcover, or the Kindle edition.
What I love is that you've blended the personal and the professional life, because I think that's so important. I think far too often I grew up in a world where it was more about your professional success, and so many people wound up unhappy personally. And you really need to be combining both. So I want to finish this with the last question for all the people out there struggling with uncertainty. And there are so many people struggling with uncertainty today. What is your greatest piece of advice as they look and head into the fourth quarter of this year, head into 2027? If they could do one thing to get into the front row, what would your piece of advice be?
I love to study or to hear stories or read stories of people who have overcome adversity. Because if they could do it, then what's preventing me from doing it? So read autobiographies, read biographies, or just do a search of inspiring stories of people who lost it all and then they came from behind to win, right? One of the stories in my book is of the Los Angeles Marathon just this year, where literally you watch the final of the LA Marathon, and this guy was ahead for the entire race. And in the last 20 yards, there was a huge gap between second place and first place. And all of a sudden, the guy in second place just had this burst of energy and literally crossed the finish line 1/100th of a second faster than the guy that was in the lead the whole race, and he won. And when he was being interviewed, he just said, I had such a belief in myself. I could do this. The race isn't over yet. And so when I see inspiring stories like that, it just gives me energy and hope that whatever issue that I'm going through, someone else has already gone through it. And they surpassed their adversity and they went on to thrive.
Yeah, I love the fact that I love this mic drop moment. The race isn't over yet. I think those are words for all of us to live by. Marilyn, as I knew you would be, you have been amazing. We're going to put everything in the show notes. Okay. I highly suggest that, I don't know, I feel like this is the year. There probably has never been a better time to get yourself out of the balcony, get yourself into the front row. And luckily for you, Marilyn Sherman has written the formula, written the book, giving you everything that you need to know to get the most out of your personal and professional life and turn all of this uncertainty into your greatest competitive advantage. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, audience, for joining us. We'll see you all right back here next week for another episode of Ask for Change.